Good morning, students. Today we are going to continue with the use and abuse of Alangara. We have already seen what Alangara is and how it is used in poetry. So here there are the deciding factors for Alangara, different Alangaras used in different manner. And so here you find Hedu Utprecha. That is, the example is the poet imagines that Brahma presented himself before the Adikavi, that is Valmiki, as if jealous of the appearance of his spouse, Vani, or speech of poetry in another person. In a way, he is there to bless Valmiki, and it is for this reason that God descended to this earth. So, by embellishing or by giving a lot of attraction for the mere saying that Valmiki is blessed with Vani or the creative art of poetry. And this is said, instead of saying it in a straightforward manner, the poet uses Alangara and he says that Brahma presented before Adigavi as if jealous of the appearance of his spouse Vani in this Adikavi. That is, Adikavi is blessed with Vani or the speech of poetry. So, this kind of decorative speech, in a way, gives attraction to the poem, and the readers are also much interested in reading that instead of just straightforward saying. Then you have the fact that Bhava and Rasa are realized by the decorations, that is Alangaras. Alangaras must be Rasa Bhava Para, means in a way it should be filled with Rasa, or in a way the use of Alangara is to create Rasa. So, rasa ensouled kavya means kavya which creates rasa by the uses of alankara and suggestion is that which is considered to be the supreme point. And that which is adorned by an alankara is the rasa, means the kavya that is adorned by alankara is the one that creates rasa. Like, for example, wearing the ornaments, removing them suggests the state of mind of the person. So also does figure suggest the bhava, means the type of alangara that is used is also the one that suggests the bhava, that which helps to embellish and add to the main theme's beauty is alangara. So, the main theme's beauty is enhanced by the embellishments, and this aspect of using embellishments and increasing or creating the beauty of the main theme is what Alangara does. So, you have a lot of definitions for Alangara. You also have the saying that why are we using Alangara and what does it do to the poem. So, with a great poet, Alagara can be used in a proper manner, and the rasa is created as a use of the embellishments, and it is most enjoyable to an aesthetically minded person, for an aesthetically minded person. So, you find that bhava and rasa are realized by decorations. So, and that is by Alangara, and rasa is created as a result of the use of Alangara, and bhava is the attitude of the person uh, who is wearing the ornaments. And so that attitude, why is the poet using Alangara in the poem? In certain places you don't need alangaras. In certain places you need alangara. So the poet is the one person who decides on where to use it, when to use it, and by that proper use of alangara, rasa is created. You have a quoting by Raymond. He expresses alangara thus: Language is to express our thoughts to others, and in ordinary conversation, we use both plain and figurative language. But when a man wants to give another the description of a scene he had seen, he does not catalogue one and all of the details of that side, but brings only his own idea of the landscape by adding to such of the details as have struck him many more ideas and emotions that have been aroused in him. So he says that language is to express our thoughts to others. In our ordinary day to day conversation, we use both plain and figurative language. Suppose you are to describe an incident. You just say that I saw a man hitting another person. That is just a matter of fact description. But the man who is telling you this says, you know, dear, that I was coming through this pond, and when we reached that particular spot, I saw the person. You give the name of the person and also the name of the person who is fighting. They seem to be fighting, and the fight was so intense. And you go on describing the intense, like it is like the description of the fight between so many things, and so on. You embellish and it gives a lot more ideas about the landscape and a lot of things that had struck him. You also tell the person that the fight was going on and so many people were around them, and none of them tried to remove them or set them apart. So that also is your evaluation of the surroundings and the people and their attitude. And so in a way you are giving a matter of fact description, but it is just not an emotional, it is touched with the emotion. And so you just add on things that your friend and you have something in common, and the people in common, so you add that also to make it all the more better description for your friend. So here you find that this kind of embellishment is alangara is necessary, and that brings in a live incident to the listener. So that in that manner also alangara helps out. Again, you find that if the representation is comparatively plain, we have what is called as sobhavokti. So that is a thought that is too simple or too ordinary needs figurative embellishments to impress or get admiration. But heroic deeds, unselfish love, sacrifice, things great in themselves, they appeal to us and needs very little decoration or minimum decoration. But ordinary things must have purple patches. Purple patches here refers to the decoration. So here, that is when you are just looking at certain thing, you just have the attitude of the person. You just give a description of the thing, and if it is ordinary, you apply figurative embellishments to impress or to give get admiration. So there is a purpose for your using of the figurative embellishments and adding to your description. And this is because it's an ordinary thing, but you really want to impress the listener and or maybe you need to get the admiration of the listener. So if that is the case, you just add things to the very little fact that is there, and these are all decorations. But heroic deeds, certain things like heroic deeds or unselfish love or sacrifice, these are great in themselves. It just do not need any decoration, or it needs minimum decoration. These are like heroic deeds, unselfish love, sacrifice. All these are noble qualities, and these noble qualities are great in themselves. They really appeal to us, and so actually they don't need any decoration, or even if it needs, it is a minimum decoration, not too much, because they are great in themselves. You do not need to decorate them and make them appear colorful before the others. But very ordinary things, they must have these colorful patches, the color or the decoration, in order to make it look great. They are ordinary, but they are made to look great by these purple patches, which are provided by the alangaras. So, purple patches here refers to the decorations or alangaras, and these purple patches will help us to notice ordinary things, and you really enjoy reading about these ordinary things decorated with alangaras. So, here you have Swabhavokti, that is, you are just that is it is in a way not embellished when there is the heroic deeds or the noble things like unselfish love and sacrifice. So these are just the things which tell you that they are great in themselves. So you don't need purple patches or alangaras or decorations to make them to make people notice them. So Western writers also have laid similar conditions regarding ornament or decoration or alangara. Pater is one who speaks about it. You will find in page 61, last paragraph, which is continued in page 62, the opinion of Pater regarding the ornament. Read it through and you'll find that it is almost similar to the one that you have already studied, but it is interesting to know what he has to tell us regarding the ornaments or alangaras. You will find that there is a reason why Anandavardhana laid down the rules for Alangara, because Alangara also needs rules. Because at that time, during the time of Anandavardhana, Sanskrit poetry had deteriorated into an artificial stage, all following the beaten path, means one following the other, not deviating or having anything new. They just imitate the great poets, and those imitations are worse things, and they do not have any quality to them. So you have find or during that time there were a lot of poetasters. You have the term poetasters, which is taken from English, and it means people who pretend to be poets. But in a way, this is true because they have aspiration to be poets, and so they think that the best thing is to imitate the great poets, but they had failed very much, or they have absolutely failed in their attempt, and they produce worse poetry than anything else. So this kind of following the beaten path, which was called at that time like Gardariga Pravaha means the goats following one another in the same path, they don't deviate. Only very few deviate from the herd, from that group. So it is like a Gardariga Pravaha, all the goats going in one way, and if one is going to jump into the water, they are all following, and without just asking or even thinking twice about it, they just continue like that. This was the condition of the poets at that time with the Sanskrit poetry. So Anandavardhana thought that they should have or they are trying to be poets, and if instruction is given to them, I think, or he thought that they will be improving. So they were producing, these groups of poets were producing imitation, and to guide such poets who do not possess an innate sense of aujitya, Mandavardhana laid down rules. They do not know where to use Alangara, when to use Alangara, and they know that Alangara is decoration, and people will be much taken up by that Alangara. But in a way, they are producing worse poetry. And to save themselves from their own self, Mandavardhana thought that he will give them or he will formulate certain rules, at least the people who aspire to be poets can go through those rules and can be poets. And they don't have that innate sense of the art in them, but they have the great ambition of becoming a poet. And so you can't just tell them that you can't write poetry, it's not good. They'll have to exercise, and practice will make a person perfect. And maybe because of that, Andavardhana thought of giving them certain rules, and they can follow the rules and use Alangara with Aujitya, and that is with appropriateness. And once you know where to use Alangara, when to use Alangara, then their poetry will improve. It is with this intention that Anandavardhana formulated or laid down the rules for Alangara. And what are the rules? The four rules are given in your text, and I have just copied it into the slide and with slight modification. First one is Alangara shall be intended to suggest rasa. Of course, what is the ultimate aim of poetry is to give rasa or to give satisfaction, and Alangara shall be intended to suggest rasa. It shall be born along with the poet's delineation of rasa. It shall be born along with the poet's delineation of rasa. The poet's ultimate aim is to create rasa through the poem, and if that is the intention, these alankaras will help him to achieve that aim of uh, of having rasa in his poetry. Third one is it shall be naturally and easily introducible. The poet should not think of it for so many days. He should be able to produce it at a moment's notice naturally, or the way he is using should be natural enough, and it should be easily introducible. Means he should not go too roundabout manner and use too much of a troublesome manner in order to introduce Alangara into his poetry. The fourth rule is that the poet shall not stop to take a fresh and extra effort to effect it. The poet should not stop to take a fresh and extra effort in order to create an Alangara. Okay, poem, of course. He is writing a poem, and to make the poem beautiful, he should not toil or work too much about it. It should come naturally, which means that he should make it as simple as possible and make it within his means to produce such alangaras. If that is the situation, then these alangaras will suggest rasa, and the poet will be able to create rasa with his poetry in the mind of the people. Otherwise, these alangaras will remain like a patchwork, and it will not go along with the poem, which means that when you read it, you feel like that this is something out of the way and it has no connection with the poem or the theme of the poem, and so you feel it awkward. So naturally, if there is an awkwardness in the use of alangara, and if the the one person who is enjoying the poem comes across that, he'll find that there is something that is not going along with the poem. And then all that he is going towards or that he is yearning for, that is rasa filled mind or the creation of rasa, that part is slowly broken. And if that is the case, then the no rasa is created towards the end. If he comes across alangaras which are used without avjitya or without the proper manner and without the easy manner or the easy manner in which it is introduced, then he will find it very difficult to follow the poem, and the poem will not yield him the satisfaction of rasa. Okay. For a master poet, as emotion increases, expression swells and figures form forth. Means so much of emotion is there in the mind, and he is writing. As he writes, the emotion increases and the expression swells and figures form forth. Figures here refers to Alangaras. They just come forward with no violation. It just comes automatically, and he is so easily able to incorporate it into the poem. It comes naturally to him, and so one line follows the other, and there is no retreating back or retreating from that line or from writing. There is no need for him to stop and think about what Alangara to use. It just comes naturally to him. And that is for a master poet, not for an ordinary poet. Understand? Ordinary people also have yearnings to become a poet, and they have to write something. They do write that. Mostly they imitate, and instead of imitating, if they follow the strictures or the rules that are set down by Anandavardhana, they'll be able to achieve something. But for a master poet, as emotion increases, expression swells and figures form forth. In Ramayana, there is a connection between emotion and figure, especially in forceful situations. You have two examples from Ramayana. I'm sure that you are all familiar with Ramayana, the story as such. But when you read Valmiki Ramayana, you will be so emotionally involved in it because of the alagaras used and because of the skill of the poet and because of the way words flow from him. So the first example is the lamenting Ayodhya on Bharata's return from the forest. We know that Bharata had gone to the forest with the intention of bringing back his brothers Rama and Lakshmana and Rama's wife Sita. But you will find that the Ayodhya was just waiting for Bharata to return. And when Bharata returns from the forest, they find to their dismay that Bharata is alone. And the whole of Ayodhya starts crying because they really wanted their king Rama, their dear king Rama, to be there in their country. And they expected Bharata to return with Rama from the forest. And this lamenting Ayodhya, the description of the lamenting Ayodhya is a moment filled with emotion, and figures just rush forth from the pen, from the mind of the Adikavi, that is Valmiki, and there is no need for any time to stop and think of an alagara to add to it. It just rushes forth. The second instance is Sita's condemnation of Ravana on seeing him out of his disguise. So, you have heard of the story of the Mayapan and how the brothers start chasing him, and then how Sita was asked to remain within a circle, and then comes an old man and Sita, out of her generosity, starts giving the old man something to drink or to have, and she was forced to leave that circle. And on seeing that, the old man, who was actually Ravana disguised as an old man, comes out of his disguise. And Sita was so feeling contemptuous of this base trick employed by Ravana to remove her from that column that is drawn around her by Lakshmana, which we call as Lakshmana Rekha, and she has come out of that. That was a trick of Ravana, and Sita condemns him for using such a contemptuous, such a low trick, like disguising himself as an old man, poor old man, and basing, or he is depending on Sita's generosity. And of course, she is generous, and she is just being kind to a very old man. And when he changes his disguise from the disguise, he is changed to Ravana, and Sita just gives him left and right. That's his, she condemns Ravana for using such a base trick like the disguise, and that is just vehement, and that also just do not need much time to think of, because the expression swells and figures form forth. It just comes out like anything, it comes so very naturally that you don't find it as patchwork. It is not something added to, and you don't find like that. It comes along with that, and that is the skill of a master poet. Again, you find that a tendency to employ figures profusely in descriptions, and the opening canto of Sundarakanda is one such example. The tendency to employ figures profusely, there is a slight spelling mistake there, in descriptions. And figures come forward profusely, means abundantly. And the perfect example is the opening canto of Sundarakanda, where everything is charged with Adbhuta Rasa. Sundarakanda is the section which deals with with Sita, and she is just going around admiring everything, and that admiration, and you will find this admiration rushing forth, and Albhuta Rasa dominating this particular section of the poem. Figures are not employed at all in places where strong emotions or pathos are portrayed. If there is a strong emotion or pathos, you don't employ any figures or any decorations or any alangaras at all. At all. This is one of the maxims of the great poets, because the emotions or even the strong emotions or pathos are in itself something great, and it just do not need any decoration as such. They are taken by the people and they are enjoyed because these are something that they can relate to. And the perfect example is that of Rama weeping at the loss of Sita in the closing cantos of Aranyakanda. You will find that Rama, that is how it happens. Towards the end of Aranyakanda, Sita was lost to them, and this is something like they both Rama and Lakshmana had Rama had gone to chase the deer, and Lakshmana had seen Rama calling out for help, and it was actually not Rama, but the sound was imitated, and Lakshmana goes to save his brother, and the two of them roam about, and Ravana comes in the guise of an old man and forces Sita to come out of that circle, and she was carried away. So when they come back after their hunting, Rama finds that Sita is lost. So Rama weeps at the loss of Sita in the closing cantos of Aranyakanda. Aranyakanda is the section where you find all the incidents related to the forest are kept there. And so you find that Rama is weeping at the loss of Sita, and that is heartfelt weeping, because he is the one to protect her, and he is the one responsible for her. And because of something, because of maybe a slight carelessness, they missed her, and they have no idea where she had gone, who had taken her away, and where she is. And Rama had been that close to Sita, and he was quite he was unconsolable, and so he starts weeping at the loss of Sita in the closing cantos of Aranyakanda, where you don't need any figures to make it all the more better, because those emotions themselves are the theme or the main spring of the poem, and that emotion is indeed something that will create rasa, one of the rasas, and that is enough. It doesn't need any figures or any decorations or even any alangaras, because it is not expected of the poet to employ alangaras where you have strong emotions or pathos. So you find here that there is a tendency to employ figures profusely in certain descriptions. Of course, when you are surprised about a lot of things, you have the tendency to use figures, too much of figures maybe. But when you have the down to earth emotions, strong emotions or pathos, or as we have seen in the earlier uh, earliest line, the noble emotions, uh, there you don't need any figures. This is how the poet discriminates. And a poet who has audition, a poet, a noble poet, or a poet who is really a master poet, he knows where to use and when to use it. And people who are not very good poets, they need instruction. This is why Andavardhana had given instructions as to where to use Alangara and when to use it and things like that. But here, you don't need that. Adikavi, that is Valmiki, was so blessed with Vani, the wife of Brahma, and it is Vani was with him in the sense that the goddess had blessed him with words and the skill of the words and the use of the words, and he had used it elaborately, and he was able to portray the weeping Rama, the weeping Ayodhya, and he had used figures where it is necessary, that is in Sundarakanda, and Adbhuta Rasa is created, and figures are that which gives an added incentive or embellishment to the Adbhuta Rasa, and all these we can see even in Ramayana. I'm not speaking just about the storylines, the prosaic storylines that are that you get everywhere, but the proper Valmiki Ramayana, the poem as such. You take that poem and start reading at least a few pages and come to know how the poet had used it beautifully. Because that is something that you can really be proud of, and you can really enjoy the beauty of the lines and the skill of the poet. Okay, thank you.